In 1973, according to Wikipedia, Kawasaki did something no one else had done. It put an engine on a plank, stood a rider on top of it, and called it the jet ski. It wasn't a boat. It wasn't a motorcycle. It was both, and it was neither. It was something the water had never seen before. Nobody asked for it. That's the thing about invention. The market doesn't request it. Somebody just builds it, and then the market has to catch up. Kawasaki built it, and for 16 years, nobody else could touch it. The idea didn't come from Kawasaki's boardroom. It came from a man named Clayton Jacobson II, according to Wikipedia, an inventor obsessed with a strange question. What if you could ride a motorcycle on water? Not float on water, not cruise on water. Ride it, lean into it, fight it, master it. Jacobson brought the idea to Kawasaki, and Kawasaki understood something most companies wouldn't have. This wasn't a boat with a new shape. This was a completely different relationship between a person and the water. One built on balance, not comfort. One built on skill, not convenience. So Kawasaki didn't build a boat. It built a motorcycle for the water. Think about what that means, mechanically and philosophically. A boat is designed to carry you. A motorcycle is designed to test you. A boat forgives mistakes. A motorcycle punishes them. Kawasaki chose the second philosophy, on purpose, and built an entire machine around it. The early jet ski had no seat. There was nothing to sit on, nothing to lean back into, nothing to catch you if you got it wrong. There was only a small platform, a throttle, and the rider's own sense of balance standing between them and the water below. Fall off, and the machine would idle in place, waiting, climb back on, and try again. That single decision would define the next 2 decades of the company's success, and it would define its downfall too. But nobody knew that yet. In 1973, there was only the machine, the water, and the thrill of standing where no one had stood before. For 16 years, Kawasaki didn't have competitors. It had a category. It had a name. Jet ski didn't mean Kawasaki's product. Jet ski meant the product. The way Kleenex means tissue. The way Xerox meant photocopy. The way a brand becomes so dominant, it stops being a brand and starts being the word itself. That's not marketing. That's ownership. Total, uncontested ownership of an entire category of human experience. Kawasaki had invented a sport. Riders stood on the machine, feet planted, knees bent, throwing their weight left and right to carve across the water like a motorcycle carves across pavement. It demanded balance. It demanded practice. It demanded fall after fall after fall before a rider finally understood how to stay upright. And that was the point. That was the appeal. Mastery was the product. For 16 years, that was enough. For 16 years, nobody built anything different, because nobody needed to. Why compete with a company that already owned the entire sport? Dealerships sold jet skis. Magazines wrote about jet skis. Kids begged their parents for a jet ski, not a personal watercraft, because the second phrase didn't exist yet in any meaningful cultural sense. Kawasaki hadn't just built a product. It had built the vocabulary everyone else would be forced to use. That kind of dominance does something to a company. It doesn't just build confidence. It builds certainty. And certainty, left unexamined for long enough, stops being a strength and starts being a blind spot. But somewhere in that decade and a half of dominance, a quiet assumption took root inside Kawasaki, an assumption that would calcify into doctrine, an assumption that said, this is what a personal watercraft is. This is what it has to be. This is what it will always be. They were wrong. They just didn't know it yet. In 1986, according to Wikipedia, Yamaha launched the Waverunner. It wasn't a copy of the jet ski. It was an argument against it. Where Kawasaki asked riders to stand, Yamaha let them sit. Where Kawasaki demanded balance, Yamaha offered stability. Where Kawasaki said master this, Yamaha said enjoy this. It was a small design choice, a seat instead of a platform. But small design choices are never just small design choices. They're philosophies, disguised as engineering. Kawasaki had built a machine for people who wanted to conquer the water. Yamaha built a machine for people who just wanted to be on it. 2 years later, in 1988, according to Wikipedia, Sea-Doo relaunched with the same idea, pushed even further. A sit-down hull, simple controls, a machine a first-time rider could climb onto and immediately feel safe. Kawasaki was still building a motorcycle for the water. Its competitors were building a boat for the family. And the family, it turned out, was a much bigger market than the athlete. Here is the irony sitting at the center of this entire story. The thing that made Kawasaki great is the exact thing that made it vulnerable. Kawasaki won the personal watercraft category by building a machine that rewarded skill. Then the category grew up around a different customer, one who didn't want skill, one who wanted ease. The stand-up jet ski was thrilling, but thrilling has a ceiling. Not everyone wants to fall off a machine 10 times before they can ride it. Not everyone wants their forearms burning after 20 minutes. Not every family vacation needs a test of balance and nerve. Some people just want to take their kids out on the water on a Saturday afternoon. Sea-Doo and Yamaha understood that first. They didn't invent the category. Kawasaki did that. But they read where the category was going, and Kawasaki didn't. This is the pattern that repeats across business history. Again and again, in industry after industry. The company that invents the market builds it in its own image. The company's image becomes doctrine, and doctrine, by definition, resists change. Look at it from the customer's side for a moment. A father wants to take his 2 kids and his wife out on the lake. He is not training for a competition. He is not chasing a feeling of conquest. He wants an afternoon that doesn't end in bruises. He wants to sit down, hold onto something stable, and go. Kawasaki, for all its engineering brilliance, had no answer for that father. Its machine was built for a different customer entirely. One who wanted the fight, not the ease. And for 16 years, that had been fine, because that customer was the only customer the category had. Once the sit-down machines arrived, the father finally had an option built for him. He took it. Kawasaki wasn't blind. Kawasaki wasn't careless. Kawasaki kept innovating. New engines, new hulls, new performance models, but it kept innovating inside its own philosophy. It made better motorcycles for the water. It didn't ask whether the water still wanted a motorcycle. Mastery had built the kingdom. Mastery would not save it. Market share doesn't disappear all at once. It bleeds, slowly, quarter by quarter, model year by model year. A percentage point here, a percentage point there. Nobody notices the empire shrinking until, one day, someone draws the chart, and everyone sees it at once. That's what happened to Kawasaki through the 1990s, and into the 2000s. Sea-Doo and Yamaha kept refining the sit-down formula. Smoother rides, easier handling, more seating, more storage, more family. The personal watercraft was no longer a stunt. It was a lifestyle product, a weekend product, a product for people who had never touched a throttle in their life. Kawasaki still had its loyalists, riders who wanted the real thing, the balance, the burn, the mastery. Kawasaki still made machines for them, and it made those machines well. But loyalists are not a mass market. Loyalists are a niche, and a niche, no matter how devoted, cannot sell a mass market forever. There's a version of this story where Kawasaki simply built the wrong product. That's not quite it. Kawasaki built the right product for the wrong decade. In 1973, there was no mass market to serve, only a new sport to define. By the 1990s, the sport had matured into an industry, and industries are shaped by volume, not by purity. Volume comes from the widest possible customer, not the most devoted one. Sea-Doo and Yamaha weren't smarter engineers. They were simply willing to ask a question Kawasaki had stopped asking. What does the next customer want? Not the original one. This is the quiet tragedy at the heart of the Kawasaki story. It's not that the company failed. It's that the company succeeded too specifically. It built the best possible version of one idea, while the rest of the world moved on to a different idea entirely. Invention had given Kawasaki the category. Commercialization took it away. By the time Kawasaki adapted, by the time it too moved towards sit-down, family-friendly models, the war was already lost. Sea-Doo and Yamaha weren't just ahead in sales, they were ahead in identity. In the public's mind, personal watercraft no longer meant standing and balancing. It meant sitting and cruising. The word jet ski still exists. People still say it, the way people still say Kleenex. But the company behind the word is no longer the company that owns the category. The name outlived the dominance. That's the strange fate of a true inventor. Sometimes you win so completely, so early, that your name becomes bigger than your business, and then the business moves on without you, while your name stays behind, still famous, still spoken, no longer in charge. Strip away the water, the engines, the decades, and what's left is a simple, brutal lesson. The thing that makes you great in year 1 can be the exact thing that limits you in year 20. Strength is not permanent. Strength is a snapshot, taken at a specific moment, against a specific set of competitors, for a specific version of a customer. Change the moment, change the customer, and that same strength, unmoved, unchanged, unquestioned, becomes a liability. Kawasaki wasn't punished for being bad at building watercraft. It was punished for being too good, too early, at one specific philosophy of watercraft, and refusing to ask whether that philosophy still matched what the market wanted. Invention is a single moment of brilliance. Commercialization is a decades-long argument about who the customer really is and what they really want, asked over and over again, without ever assuming you already know the answer. Kawasaki answered that question once, brilliantly, in 1973. It never asked it again. This isn't unique to watercraft. It's the same story told with different machines and different decades. The company that builds the first version of something often falls in love with that first version. It mistakes the origin of the idea for the destination of the idea. It assumes the customer who existed at the beginning is the customer who will exist forever. But categories grow up. Categories change hands. The first customer is rarely the biggest customer, and the biggest customer is rarely the one the founder imagined. Kawasaki imagined a rider willing to fall, again and again, in pursuit of mastery. The market, eventually, turned out to be full of people who just wanted to float. Picture it now. 2 riders on the water, side by side. One stands, knees bent, fighting for balance, chasing a feeling only a handful of people will ever master. One sits, relaxed, hand loose on the throttle. Kids in the seat behind them, laughing. Both are on personal watercraft. Both trace back to the same invention, the same company, the same idea born in 1973. But only one of them represents where the market actually went. Kawasaki built the water motorcycle. The world, in the end, wanted the family boat. And that's the whole story. Not a failure of engineering, not a failure of vision, but a failure to notice the moment when the thing you invented stopped, needing you to be exactly who you'd always been. The category survived. The dominance didn't. That's the price of inventing something the world eventually outgrows. Kawasaki still makes personal watercraft today. They're capable machines, respected by riders who care about performance. But respect isn't the same as dominance. Being admired by a niche isn't the same as owning a market. Somewhere between the platform and the seat, between the fall and the float, Kawasaki lost something it can never fully get back. Not the ability to build, but the right to define what the entire category means. It invented the water motorcycle. The world built a family boat on top of it, and drove away.